serviced and helped effectively. I want to make sure we're not running out of time. I know your next panel is really excited and want to know if they were getting ready to come on stage. I mean, you're going to be talking about the conversation with world leaders, essentially about financing and investments, development partners, and governments. And I know that there was a question. We're going to wait till after this session, so we'll touch that. But I'll leave you with a question that says, does Tongston provide capital and support people that want to start their business? So we'll hear that after this panelist, as we're inviting people to the stage. And welcome. Don't forget, hashtag TEES 2022. Even the speakers coming today, please do share pictures of you speaking to elevate your brand across LinkedIn. Let the world know you are here with us at the Tongston Entrepreneurial Education Summit 2022. Share the world, share your wealth of knowledge, and spread it. See you soon. Have a great panel.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Yes, so this panel is on a conversation with world leaders. We have two panelists I'm going to be moderating. One of them is already here, Mr. Olusiji, Aina. We met just a few days ago, I think, virtually or digitally, not in person, as a result of this event. So I feel, sir, from your profile, I'm not going to do justice to really. I'm not going to do a good job in introducing you because you have a very vast profile, not just in the private sector, but also in the public sector, and I think maybe to a certain extent the non-profit sector. So if you can introduce yourself, sir, to our global audience. Before I think when the next member of the panel also joins, he is going to do the same before we go into the matter of this topic.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a very good morning from here, and I want to congratulate you on the great job, the impact you're making globally, and for putting this together. I count it all joy, a privilege, and a great honor to be here, and thank you so much for having me. My name is Olusiji, Aina, just as you have rightly mentioned. I'm a development economist. Over the years, in the last 27 years or thereabout, I've worked in different sectors. I started from the private sector as a banker and spent about a decade in 4 international banks, and then moved a little bit into the capital market, the corporate finance sector, and more like the wealth creation, where I spent a little bit about 4 or 5 years. And then I jumped into the power sector. So when the power sector was unbundled in 2012, 2013, and it used to be NEPA, now it's the National Electric Power Authority. So it was unbundled to all the DISCOs, the GENCOs, and all of those IPPs that we have today. So I spent a little bit of time with Benin Electricity Distribution Company for a couple of 2 years, as a Deputy Chief Strategy and Transformation, basically like a Deputy Director, so to oversee the revenue transformation and a couple of work we do. So I spent a little bit of time, then I moved to support the first power sector stabilization fund that was put together by the Central Bank of Nigeria as a director of operations to manage that fund for all of the DISCOs, all of the GENCOs, and all of that. So I spent a little bit of time also there before I jump into the development sector fully, which I've been doing, on skeletal basis while I was navigating all around the banking, the corporate sector, and all of that. So I manage a couple of USAID funded projects, World Bank funded projects across northern Nigeria, support, a couple of other jobs across the continent. And that's where I've been building the career and all of that. So again, I manage a couple of those projects before I move again into the consulting firm, work with the South African firm, sit on their board as executive director to support businesses, General Electrics, and all of those multinationals across the globe who are working across the continent. And then I moved to the impact sector properly, because I came to understand that no matter what you do, if the impact level is not there to impact the bottom line, the people who are at the bottom of the pyramid, it appears that nothing much has been done. So again, I spent a little bit of time, which I'm still doing, creating impact and supporting small growing businesses, small SMEs, medium and large, and ensuring that we are able to catalyze some level of growth that can be inclusive in a way to create more jobs, more wealth, and to support all of those folks within that ecosystem. Again, I haven't done that. My career took a little bit of dimension, and now I sit mostly on the advisory board of multinationals and international organizations to discuss, support, drive policy change around regional and global trade, across countries and regional level, which I do at the moment, sitting on the U.S. African Trade Council as the advisory board member. So let me not bore our audience, but that has been the journey in the last couple of years. But the most interesting thing about all of this is my passion for small growing businesses, is my passion to alleviate poverty, is my passion for wealth creation, is to ensure that the way African is being perceived, we change the entire global perspective, despite all of those avalanche of challenges we have around the leadership. But I believe we can contribute our quota and work together with other stakeholders to make Africa and Nigeria a better place to live. Again, thank you so much for having me. I'm more than happy to be on this panel.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. I think, so I was definitely right when I said I won't do a good job describing your profile and all that. So you have proven me right, sir. And I think one of the things you were saying in your introduction, or even just the last thing that you said, is something that we discussed during the first day of this summit, the in-person one in Abuja, which is that as much as possible, COVID has really shown that, Africa needs to develop its own resources, because many of what's being refined as technology, items within our mobile phones, computers, vehicles, and everything, even down to our fuel, it's all being pulled from the land here, taken out, refined, and built into a finished product, and then sent back for us to then buy it back. So it became, because of the shutdown of COVID and trade and all that, it became even more of a bigger reason why we have to build our own. We're not just mining our resources, but we are building and refining it into the end product and then putting it out to the rest of the world. And really, I think in the global politics of things also, especially Europe, the EU will say this also, that it's important that Africa does well for itself and builds its own sustainable socioeconomic development. Otherwise, the burden then becomes, especially because of our high population, it becomes a burden to the neighboring continents, So it became even very more interesting. And I'm trying to say that definitely what you're saying right now in terms of impact of whatever we're doing in industries as professionals must be seen here first if we really want to change the rest of the world, or if the world really wants to move forward. If Africa is being left behind, it will really impact the rest of the world. So I really do agree with you, sir. And it's also what we are also trying to do, hopefully, and we will see results, I hope, in our lifetime as far as growth is concerned. So let me jump into the core of this topic. It's a long one, but I think we will do mutually do justice to it, especially from your experiences. So it's about the future of financing and investment for MSMEs, especially as you said, they are normally seen as the bedrock of every economy. If they don't do well, the economies will fail, and government cannot hire everybody, cannot do everything for everyone. So in terms of the finance and investment that typically should go to MSMEs, especially from development partners and from government, how do you see what has been your experience in terms of what has been happening before, what's happening right now, and also what should be happening in the future, or what you see trending happening in terms of the financing of MSMEs in especially here in Africa, but also what you see has worked in other parts of the world?
Excellent. And again, thank you so much for that very important question. Questions around funding, around investment across the continent has been a bit of concern, but maybe I should lay a little bit of background and give you a bit of statistics in terms of where we are as at 2021. That in a way will help us to be able to jump into some of the future plans, the opportunities that a lot of people are concerned with and all of that. I think in total, as at 2021, we have in excess of about $4.9 billion, which is the total estimated funding that was made available across different sectors. And in looking at that, something, began to get me worried. And out of this $4.9 billion, the one that was announced that the people are aware of It's largely about $4.6 billion, which was more like a disclosed funding. Disclosed funding is the one that people are aware of, people can read. So there still be a little bit of about $3 billion that people didn't even know, went into some other sectors. And that's about 300,000, undisclosed and all of that. Now, if you look at that in the year growth over the years, it's more like ×2 of the kind of funding that has been announced over the years. And some of this particular statistics of about 4.9 billion is more, of about 740 deals or more between in 2021, which is about 2.5 times what happened in 2019. So you can see a leap, you can see a jump between 2019 and 2021, more about 2.5% of the funding in terms of investment to small green businesses, to MSMEs, across the continent. And again, what this accounts for is that you have about $3.1 billion that were given to which are new funds, as against what was announced in 2019. If I can recall correctly, because of the kind of data I have, it's more at least about the total funding which goes to debt finance is about 6%, of this funding, while some went into grants. I'll talk a little bit more about the equity funding, but 6% of this went into that debt. And then if you go into different sectors, 62% of this fund went into fintech. Fintech got the highest, 62% of this fund. And that's why you see a lot of rounds of angel investors talking about what is happening to Fruta Waves. I'll mention a couple of them just very quickly on this question, but or later on. But 62% of this funding, went into fintech, and LTech accounted for about 8% of this fund for small growing businesses. 7% went to about logistics. Education, has about 5%, very little as 5%, which is one sector where you play predominantly, but we can find a way to begin to see how to link all of that to fintech as well. And then the clean technology, clean energy also went into about 5%. Now, agriculture, as interesting as that sector is, accounts for only 5% of total fund that was available for 2021. And then the e-commerce account for about 3%, mobility about 3%, then data and analytics account for about 2%. So what am I saying with these statistics in a nutshell? What I'm saying is that there have been available funding, grant, equity, all over the continent, for fintech. And I can tell you as well that there are different countries that also access this funding. But the most important thing is that we must begin to acknowledge that the African continent is a very vastly unexplored market. There are a lot of opportunities within the continent, and it's evidently reaching the mainstream, shifting the narrative, basically from that of a hopeless continent now to one where infrastructural and service gaps become something entrepreneurs can work on, over the time, and then devote resources, to it. As the world begins to learn from the COVID-19, post-COVID-19 pandemic, on daily routines, people are now, work is beginning to retrieve in terms of from the usual, and then become so interesting in terms of harnessing business potentials across the continent. So COVID-19 has taught us, like rightly mentioned at the beginning, the need for Africans to begin to look inward. We need to begin to create inclusive business, inclusive growth. We need to begin to, let me give you a very disturbing statistics around Ukraine. Ukraine is about 40 million people. And if you look at what Ukraine is accounting for, about 30-something% of the total grains, for the entire world. Now, if you look at Nigeria with a population of over 200 million, and we have to depend on Ukraine for wheat to make bread, we have to for grains to make bread, and a couple of that. We have not been able to harness those potentials, and we are blessed. Some couple of months ago, I was in Kano. I moved from Kano to all of those axes, and I look at the informal market and see the statistics of the commodity trading in one of those informal markets is in excess of about 20 billion per day. What happens informally? That people buy grains, buy soya bean, hibiscus flower, buy maize, and all of that. So how do we begin to mainstream these growing businesses into the formal sector? And why doing that without harming them? without harming them. Because a lot of these small businesses are used to the natural and traditional way of doing businesses. So when you mainstream them into a formal sector, you must be very careful not to harm them. Otherwise, some of them will naturally die. So by and large, investment opportunity is so enormous, so that I don't take most of the time on this particular question. The funding is available, and more funding from the statistics I have are available for the continent, even though fintech is still leading in accessing that. Maybe at some point we might have to discuss that and see how we can connect education, to fintech in a way that they can leverage on the funding that is available to be able to catalyze growth on that. But that is the statistics for Africa as a whole. And if time permits me, I might be able to break it down into countries so that you know what Nigeria got, you know what Algeria got, you know what South Africa got. All of those statistics is what I can also provide. Thank you again for this very lovely question.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much, Mr. Aina. Yeah, I agree with many of what you said. I remember seeing the report also on the statistics, and unfortunately, you know how I felt when I saw on education was the one that got least attraction. Many of it went to fintech, and even as you said, agri, which is where most of what a lot of African countries with the right, especially in the sub-Saharan Africa, where the land is very rich, agri-wise, you would think like most of it, a lot of it, those financing and all that would go into it,
Yeah.
or even that people would explore the MSMEs will explore that sector, but it seems like there's just not much connection between the financing, but also the capacity of the MSMEs to leverage or to make it take hold of that opportunity that exists there. So I think I will explore that in a little bit also after Mr. Ohio speaks, because he joined us some minutes ago also. Mr. Ohio, if you can hear me, just like Mr. Aina, I don't think I will do a good job giving out your profile. So, sir, if you can quickly just tell us about yourself, and then I'll address with you also the same question that Mr. Aina just answered.
Okay. Good morning, all, and thank you for the opportunity of having me on this show. My name's Ohio Ifiabor. I'm currently the group chairman, non-executive group chairman of Cititrust Holdings PLC. Cititrust Holdings PLC is a financial services and investment banking institution operating in Nigeria and 13 African countries. We hope to become a dominant brand across the African continent in the next 2 years. We are almost getting there. Prior to now, I had my early career in the banking industry, where I rose from the level of a youth corper to an executive director in commercial banking and in mortgage banking. I was also an executive director in charge of strategy and market development in Globacom telecommunications. And thereafter, I've been a professional consultant, helping emerging conglomerates in Africa and developing them to become world-class brands. In the process, I've been able to understand the nature and peculiarities of African businesses. And we were also able to come under the platform of Cititrust Holdings PLC to begin to play a pivotal role in spearheading both financing, management restructuring, business refocusing of some of these businesses. Thank you very much once again for the opportunity of having me on this show.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Ohio. I think you are being humble, sir. You didn't even mention your participation in Globacom, which is one of the biggest telecom companies in Nigeria and across Africa, right? But yeah,
Yes,
so
I just touched it briefly.
yes, briefly. So your same question actually. How do you see basically the future of financing and investment for MSMEs, especially in Africa, which is where really we are dominant at in what we do right now?
Okay. In my humble view, I see great opportunities for financing and investments for MSMEs currently. But I have also seen a trend. I don't think African businesses are optimally positioned to access this financing. My experience has been still this, I own it and I want to take it all. We have not seen a conscious attempt, even though that is gradually changing. It's not changing rapidly as one would expect. Maybe that is also why the inflow of financing is also not what I may call visibly reflecting in the growth pattern of African businesses. We are not well positioned, both in terms of the structures, both in terms of corporate governance, and both in terms of even the management profile of those that are leading our African businesses. We still have quite a lot to do in this regard, and that is why someone like me, who has been a professional consultant since 2016, has also played a role in helping some of these businesses to really attain self-fulfillment and self-actualization. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Ohio. I do agree with you also, because this is not just beneficial to our audience, but even for me and for Tongston, it's actually beneficial because our investment Tongston Ventures also puts money and invests in MSMEs, typically for equity rather than loans. We do also give grants, which is also part of our CSR. But it's very important for me, as in hearing what you are saying, and also what Mr. Aina said, what has been happening and what they see as the.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for being here. We love it. Sorry, we're having technical difficulties. Mr. Bello will be back. But my name's Rachel, and I'm helping guide this show all day through. Happy that you're here to join. And I wanted to pick up some questions coming in from the chat. Would that be okay?
That's okay by me.
Absolutely.
Great. I didn't want to interrupt your conversation, but I saw that there was a little moment of pause. So some of the questions we got is, what are the sources of finances available to operators of MSMEs? This is one question that came in from the chat. Another one is, how can we reduce small business failures in Nigeria?
All right. I think in terms of it's a combination of a lot of things. And I will start again by saying, in most of the forum where I see it, I've always been an advocate by saying government institutions need to be brought into conversations, because it starts with them. You know, the enabling environment is very critical in terms of the kind of policy that government makes to make ease of doing business quite interesting. So if, for example, if you look at industries within the production sector, many of them will have to close down, naturally due to government policies on forex. Again, because of the crisis in between Russia and Ukraine, grains could not come in. Bread manufacturers at some point were going to shut down. And if you also look at people who are, using generator because they had to use diesel to power their generator because there's no power, businesses can automatically shut down. So these are crises that are induced by government policies that are not friendly to small growing businesses because of the cost of maintaining those businesses. So if they don't have, if we all know that, the power sector is not really giving the kind of power for small growing businesses to process, products. So if they have to rely on generator, and then the cost of diesel moved by almost about 600%, within the last 3 months. So how can a small growing business remain in business if the environment is not naturally okay for them to try? So, but beyond that, beyond those government policies that have basically affected small growing businesses, another part which was mentioned by my brother on the speaker, it has to do with the corporate governance and the structure of those businesses. A lot of businesses here in Nigeria are still my own. You see the man who is the managing director, is also the finance director, is also the HR manager. He does whatever he likes. There is no way a business can grow if a business is treated, like a family or like, one-man business, So those are the kind of issues that can affect businesses from dying in the country. The part of government and also the part of the growing business itself in terms of the level of preparedness to be able to attract the needed growth. How much of growth strategy do they have? Where does those business want to be in 10 years? Do they have a plan to say this is year 1, Where do I want to be in 10 years? How will I get there? What do I need to get there in 10 years? Those are the how, why, when, where. They need to put those questions in check and then begin to answer them. If all of those are not answered, then the businesses will automatically relapse within a year or 2 or 3 maximum when they start. So I will yield the floor to my brother to lend his voice on that.
Thank you very much, sir. You've actually covered the 2 major points. And I was also going to add to what he has already said, that government also at times, once you've not provided the enabling environment, the little gains these small businesses are making, government also want to kill them with multiple taxations. Government also want to bring policies to practically harass them even out of business, because they already see that this one is already rearing his head. It's an opportunity to tap revenue. But beyond that, in addition to the points he has made, it's also how businesses from the one should have that consciousness that we need to get our basics and our foundation right. Of course, both religions, the Christian and Muslim religions, agree that the foundation is not right. If the foundation is wrong, what can even a righteous business do? Practically nothing. You just be building something on nothing. In terms of structure, there are still professionals that should be able to man and by extension solve some of these problems which the owner or the founder wants to be the everything. They want to solve everything. They want to handle everything. And likely because of the finances, likely because, again, they want to be able to manipulate financial records and run away from it. So we also need to get the foundations right from the beginning. And where you do not get it right, opportunities also exist to call in professionals. These days, luckily, it is not all about paying professionals. You could also entice them, like some do to me, with shareholdings. You could also entice them with deferred payments once the business is successful. These are some of the ways I believe, in addition to what my brother has just highlighted, we can begin to look at business failures and support them or assist them to wake up and to grow. Thank you.
I love it. This has been a great panel. I've really enjoyed listening to you guys. I think the theme is wake up, right? Wake up, build your foundation, and watch how you grow. One last question. I got in the chat, what do you think is Nigeria's global competitive advantage out there in the marketplace? What can we bring to the world? What do you say?
All right, so the global competitive advantage of Nigeria is quite enormous, in terms of that. And I'll give you just 1 or 2 examples. Beyond oil, if you look at the agriculture sector, for example, in cashew, Nigeria is one of the largest producers of cashew across the continent. And there have been a lot of conversations around, trade and all of that. Nigeria must begin to look inward. We hear the word diversification like it's one big thing to do. But if you look at what my brother said in terms of the growth of business, what I see here is, again, government. Is government really willing to support with policies that will enhance the opportunity, or that will create a platform, for such opportunities to begin to surface in a way that becomes a global trend. So if you look at the cashew, for example, that I gave to you, if you go to Kogi, if you go to Benue, and all of those folks, they come here to pack our cashew. You send the cashew to Vietnam. Vietnam will process the cashew and then sell to America. So take a look at that. If the enabling environment is right, why do we need to export our cashew to Vietnam? Now, why can't we process there and then export direct to the United States and to the consumers, where we can begin to earn in Forex in excess of billions of dollars on a monthly basis? But the policy around how we can industrialize. So how many people will cite their industries in Nigeria and expect it to grow? And one last point, take a look at our past. I mean, what do you call it? The mining sector. The Ajakuta steel is a 98% completion stage, and it's been there for the past 20-something years. 98% completion stage, and Ajakuta steel need only just about $2 billion for it to be ready. Now, Ajakuta is capable enough to generate the steel that can make us to compete with Japan, that can make us to compete with South Korea. So you begin to see the quality of things that will come from here. And if you look at the number of, or the quantity of steel that we buy from China and all of those folks all over the world, you will know that we can begin to export steel. If only government can focus on that. How much is $2 billion? Just 1 trillion naira. Ajakuta will become operational. It will create jobs. It will open up the market and all of that. So I will yield the floor again to my brother, because we can keep talking about different things that can put Nigeria at that global competitive advantage. But those are my 2 points, in the commodity sector and as well in the production sector. Those two alone can conveniently make us to be at par with South Korea, with Japan, and with China. Thank you again for having me.
Yes, I will approach this question from 2 perspectives. First, in terms of global competitive advantage, I want to look at what is readily available to us to make our businesses prosperous. Then secondly, I would also want to look at it from what we have not even utilized, what we have not taken advantage of. They are both complementary in the perspectives. I think Nigeria and the African continent is naturally blessed by the Almighty God with abundant resources, both in terms of natural and human resources. Interestingly, you have the best brains in Africa. They excel anywhere in the world. In fact, in most parts of the world, particularly America and Europe, they have become leaders. They have become game changers. In fact, they are even leaving their own territory to go and help other areas develop. And in terms of human resources, they are just naturally there. He has talked about agricultural resources. He's talked about mineral resources. They are there. But again, are we exploring them, which is the problem? I also like to support him, my brother who spoke earlier, in terms of the examples he gave. But before I even say 1 or 2 more points there, let me also say we are also blessed in the African continent with the mass market. That is also one very great resource, or if you want to put it that way, that we have. We have the consumers. It is just that the purchasing power, for reasons that have been identified on this platform, is also weak. That is why in the first place, we're also exploring, talking about businesses, other parts of the world. So when you look at the purchasing power, the mass market, which is largely retail-based, we have the market. The question is, why are we not taking advantage of these? Again, like my brother had rightly said, we still need government intervention, government support in a more friendly way. I dare say even the Dangote today that has become a role model also at some point needed government support. At some point, government consciously intervened to give him all the support he needs, even in terms of land and in terms of making the environment friendly. Today, we are all aware that the Land Use Act has prevented many real estate developers who would have made housing available to all in Nigeria impossible. We are also aware that government using multiple taxations have even killed and eroded businesses. I would have thought that at this time, when for one reason or the other, the cost of doing business is becoming high, government should begin to look at palliatives for businesses that have the prospects of showing positive growth and also nipping unemployment in the bud. So I would have thought such businesses, but on the contrary, government as usual is more interested in how to even kill them unconsciously, though, by trying to even collect the little revenue they have. But looking at the future, which is where financing opportunities are coming, I think government should even begin to also support businesses to be able to meet some of these requirements of these financing opportunities we see around. and also consciously even take positions in some of these investments. I see it happening in one or two sectors, but I think we need to deepen it further for us to be able to realize our full potentials on the African continent. Thank you very much, madam.
Thank you, everybody. It's been a wonderful, wonderful actual panel. I'm glad Mr. Bello's back so we can have him to close up. And just thank you so much for your time and expertise to sharing with our group and our community.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Looks like Mr. Bello might be frozen, but it's been a great panel. That's the end of our panel, where the theme is wake up and build that foundation that you need to expand globally so you can actually use the resources you have available. Tongston has built the framework to help support the Nigerians and people around the continent of Africa to excel and grow. So please, it's been a pleasure to have you here, guys. I'm sure our community has loved having your expertise, and I invite you to share this opportunity across your LinkedIn for other community members to really see you as leaders to help shape the path of the future. Thank you.